Okay, my time starts now. My partner and I strongly affirm today's resolution. Based on the phrase more beneficial than harmful, to judge and weigh the positive and negative aspects according to both their quality and quantity. In our definition of a tech company, it is any business that has its largest sector of revenue from technology-based items such as Apple. Our first contention is reducing violent crime. According to SAS Analytics, there are many uses of using data collected by technology companies, such as getting understandings from data, identifying and recognizing suspicious behavior, activities, and enabling officers of the law to get a head start on criminals. What this means is that criminals, especially violent ones, can be traced and tracked based off of just their online information, which can greatly increase the chance of a murder or any other crime investigation to be solved. For example, police in Cincinnati were able to completely dismantle a crime organization with more than 70 members. They're able to use both the search history and the history from social media sites the gang members frequented, and were able to locate the residences of members as well as their meeting points. Furthermore, Melvin Collins, who was facing charges of murder along with weapons and narcotics-related charges, has been caught by police for allegedly posting Facebook photos flashing gang signs, as well as murder threats and referring to his own past crimes. Additionally, data collection has been linked to a 40% decrease in crime in total. According to the MTAS, security cameras who fall under our definition of technology companies such as HK Vision help to, quote, decrease crime rates against property centers as well as in public places. This means that not only is data collection better for reducing crime, other technology companies can also help reduce crimes based on the perception of collecting personal data, even if they aren't actually collecting that data themselves. Our second contention is pandemic prevention. Millions of cases of diseases such as COVID-19 can be prevented or even cured from data collection. Contact tracing, social distancing, and disease treatment is much easier with technology companies' use of personal data. Online data tracking also has ways of preventing and enforcing social distancing laws. For example, in China, WeChat has implemented a system of tracking people based off of their health. WeChat's QR code scanner has indicators that flash red whenever someone's infected with COVID-19. The system has allowed China to be the first country to reopen schools and businesses, while the rest of the world has continued to be in lockdown. Data collection also means better healthcare for people around the world. For example, healthcare providers in Singapore are beginning to gather big data insights from analytics platforms to transfer how they manage chronic diseases. Doctors and other medical professionals will easily be able to access patient symptoms or any other information about them, such as any underlying medical conditions or if the patient has ever had any sort of addiction. This information is crucial for hospitals so they can give the best treatment for their own patients. For example, hospitals and doctors have begun testing for a small type of skin cancer called metastatic NSCLC. Patients who entered their information had a much higher chance of survival when checking into a hospital for the second time, even if they have never been to that hospital. Our third contention is user benefits. For example, an app known as Honey tracks its users' information, but that does not mean it's negative for the consumer. First off, Honey's data collection software does find data on customers, but it's only for use within the app. According to Honey themselves, as well as The Verge, although Honey does collect data, its data is used for its own service. Customers of Amazon or even any other small business will be able to find more goods than they want using this system. Additionally, users of any remotely online app or company will have much more convenient sources. According to VentureBeat, both customer service and customer annoyances will be much more efficient and be fixed much more easily. Businesses will reinvest their money into producing better customer care and managing customer complaints, while without this data, it will not be able to function properly. The goal of a business in the first place is to attract customers. So without the help of data collection, these companies will not be able to function like they are today and provide the care that they give to their customers today. This is why we strongly urge a pro ballot. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so is everyone ready? Okay, time starts now. We negate the resolution framework. We should focus on those who are vulnerable unless it harms the majority of people. Contention 1, cybercrime. Tech companies deliberately sell customer data to make profit. According to The Conversation, data brokers sell lists of rape victims and addresses of domestic violence shelters. Subpoint A, data breaches. When using personal data, tech companies do not protect data from criminals, causing identity fraud and scams. In 2013, the New York Times states how 3 billion Yahoo users' email addresses, birth dates, and phone numbers were exposed. In 2018, the Wall Street Journal explains how Google exposed 500,000 users' data for 3 years. Michael Groth said that Google did not disclose this data breach for 7 months after discovering it, fearing it would hurt the public perception of the company. Overall, according to The Independent, data exploitation of tech companies specifically has caused a $1.5 trillion loss in cybercrime. Subpoint B, human trafficking. According to Mercury News 2019, a tech company Salesforce sold sex trafficking related data to Backpage, a website that facilitated sexual exploitation and abuse, enabling Backpage to expand to more traffickers. As a result, according to Bloomberg, 90 women were abused. Salesforce knowingly worked with websites for years to gain profit. Point C, risk of violence. Reuters explains how during 2017 in Myanmar, targeted ads discriminated towards Rohingya people caused the spread of offline violence. New York Times states that Facebook is the only source of information for 20 million people in Myanmar, forcing them to only see the misinformation. 43,000 people were killed and 1.1 million refugees were created. Other examples come from Sudan, India, and other poor regions around the world. Contention 2, healthcare harms. Subpoint A, fake healthcare ads. As NPR states, pharmaceutical companies spend $4 billion a year on ads, targeting consumers based on their health conditions and sending them fake medicine and drug commercials. It shows that people are more likely to believe commercials than doctors. However, these drugs are dangerous. The NABP 2018 reports that in the US, 98% of online drug sites do not require valid prescriptions. Gardner reports that fake medicine kills 250,000 children globally per year. Subpoint B, insurance discrimination. ProPublica reports that health insurers gather patient data from data brokers, boosting their profit by signing up to help healthy people and avoiding sick people. Tech companies sell patients' health records to hospitals who deny people's health coverage due to pre-existing health conditions. According to a KFF organization, 54 million Americans with pre-existing health conditions can be denied of health coverage. And even if these people do get coverage, insurers charge them with even more. According to Time magazine, 92% of health insurers charge women $1,200 more per year based on data. Contention 3, high mortgage costs. Mortgages that loan borrowers must pay to purchase a home. According to Vice, credit companies gather personal data from financial technology companies such as Equifax to issue credit scores. Racial minorities are often assigned with lower credit scores because of personal data. In fact, they paid $371 billion more in mortgage payment in just 3 years. In another example, facial recognition enables financial tech leaders to charge minorities 6 to 9% more in money. Minorities cannot find a home and are trapped in a vicious cycle of poverty. Contention 4, discriminatory policing. According to Vice 2019, predictive policing directs police attention towards random racial minorities and innocent people and throws them into jail for absolutely no reason. ProPublica explains how the algorithm wrongly labeled blacks as criminals at twice the rate as whites in LA. 80% of the information was inaccurate. Another example is from Gizmodo 2020. It shows how a surveillance program actually misrecognized black faces and reported wrong locations. More than 61,200 innocent people were sent back into jail as a result of the wrong analytics. Thus, we strongly negate the resolution. Thank you.
All right, so Crossfire.
Okay, so ready whenever you are, okay? Okay, time starts now. How many of the top 25 data breaches have been actually from these tech companies in the first place?
Sorry, can you please repeat that?
How many out of the top 25 data breaches have been from tech companies?
Sorry, we don't have the burden to show that tech companies uniquely show all of these data breaches. We tell you that even if there are two different harms connected by two different aspects, it doesn't mean that these two harms are caused by different things. Simply because they're caused by, for example, tech companies or another industry does not necessarily mean that the harm doesn't exist. In fact, on our side, we really give you evidence that says that $1.5 trillion are lost due to tech companies specifically. Now moving on to our question.
We understand this.
Why should we sacrifice?
I understand this money is lost in the first place, but how many out of, let's say, 10 or 25 of these top data breaches have been from these tech companies in the first place?
It does not matter whether it is from tech companies or not, because simply because it's from another service doesn't mean that data breaches don't happen in tech companies' industries. It also happens in tech companies' industries, and we tell you big impacts on our side, where we tell you that 3 billion Yahoo users' email addresses, birth dates, and phone numbers were exposed. Simply because other industries have the same problem doesn't necessarily mean that the problem does not exist.
I feel like
our question.
Topic.
We can watch the next question. We have spent 1 minute on this question already.
I don't think you answered our question, if that's fine.
We already stated that we don't have the burden to show uniqueness. Now, moving on to our question. So why should we sacrifice 60? Can we please have a question?
Okay, sure.
Thank you. So why should we sacrifice 61,200 innocent people simply for a few numbers of crimes being avoided on your side?
We're not saying that there's only just a few crimes being solved. There are millions of people's livelihoods that can be destroyed on your side. Well, we can actually prevent this from happening in the first place. We can also help save human lives in the first place. So we believe that this outweighs your point. So,
how many actual crimes are actually prevented, and how many lives were saved on your side?
well, we did mention that there's a 40% decrease in crime in total, and because crime itself is such a hard thing to track, we can only give this percentage, but this percentage is already a pretty good reflector of how much crime has been reduced in the first place.
Was this 40% because of smarter technology or technology companies?
I feel like we've answered the question sufficiently. So I would just like to go back to my previous question about these data breaches. Since out of percentage-wise, how many of these data breaches have been in actual tech companies?
You have the burden to show that, because we tell you that it doesn't matter what percent of the world actually causes the tech companies to cause these data breaches. We tell you that we don't have to show this because just because other industries cause the same problem doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist in tech companies. As we have stated overall again and again, we tell you that $1.5 trillion are lost, and if the actual harm exists and is unique to the tech companies,
we just wanted to put out that
should win on today's point on this point.
Thank you. So we would just like to put out that since these data breaches have been happening, and these data breaches are actually from pre-2015, which is
Could I take 30 seconds of prep?
30 seconds prep time for poll side. Your time starts now.
Time is up.
Okay, your time's up.
Okay. If everybody's ready, I will begin in 3, 2, 1. So I will go through my opponent's points. My opponent's case, specifically explaining why each of their points are wrong. So first, they bring up a point about cybercrime and data breaches, and I would like to state, as my partner stated in the crossfire, of the top 15 data breaches, just 4 of them were online companies. That included companies like MySpace, which were hacked when online systems were not as sophisticated as they are now. This means that the data breaches are not due to the tech companies' ineptitude, but rather due to the vulnerability associated with starting a new company. Also, they provide no impacts for this point, which is where I would like to cross-apply our first contention. Both our first contention and their first contention are regarding security, but ours has a much better impact, reducing violent crime, and they provide no impacts for this point, and I have evidence of that. According to Daniel Solov of the GW Law School, in most cases of privacy harm, no one is actually harmed. Courts also support this. That's the case even when a company is acting negligently or recklessly. This means that of the minimal cases of privacy violation, just a small percentage of those actually resulted in someone getting harmed, which in most cases have just been losing some money. Think about it this way, Judge. Would you rather be on point or have your bank account hacked? Second, our opponents talk about sex trafficking, and I would like to state that this is not necessarily pertaining to a tech company. A tech company isn't at fault here. It is the third party that the tech company sold the data to. And third, they talk about essentially how how there is false news being spread and all of the harms that are pertaining to the spread of false news. I would like to state that this is also not topical. This example is not personal information. The example that they give in Myanmar, though it is pertaining to a tech company, Facebook, it is not regarding personal information of any sort. It is regarding news, which is not personal. And it's just the spread of false or incorrect general information. And fourth, talking about their point about discrimination, algorithms can be reprogrammed and fixed. Actually, they are easier to fix than they are easier to reprogram and fix than a human, human intervention would be the alternative to predictive policing. So according to Joe Kleinberg for a journal of legal analysis, the use of an algorithm is an alternative way to try to deal with the bias of human decision making. The name on a resume, race, age, sex, or any applicant characteristics are candidate predictors like any other. Variable X42. If this variable is not predictive of the outcome, the algorithm will never use it. This is proof that biases and certain racial elements can be systematically removed from an algorithm. And also, algorithms are not inherently racist. They are machine learning. According to Media Lab, January 2018, machines don't bring prior experience, contextual beliefs, and all the other things that make it important to meet human learners where they are and provide many paths into context. Machines only learn from what you show them. The textbook in machine learning is the training data that you show to your software to teach it how to make decisions. In machine learning, the teacher is responsible for feature selection. Essentially, algorithms learn from what they are taught. They are not inherently racist and therefore can be reprogrammed. Also, the collection of personal data can be used to better understand and systematically remove algorithmic biases. Essentially, in a Stanford study, they used word embeddings, which is an algorithmic technique that can map relationships and associations between words. And they use these to measure changes in ethnic and gender stereotypes over the past century in the United States. They analyzed large databases of American books, newspapers, and other texts. And essentially, they found that embeddings effectively capture existing stereotypes and that those biases can be systematically removed. And instead of removing those stereotypes, we can also use embeddings as a historical lens for quantitative, linguistic, and sociological analysis of biases. Thank you, Judge, and please cast a pro ballot.
Will we please have 1 minute of prep time? Thank you.
Thumbs up.
Okay. Is everyone ready? Time starts now. Okay, starting in the first contention about reducing violent crime. First of all, they provide us with no link of how this is linked with tech companies. We see that it's the NSA or other parties using this technology or using personal data, not tech companies. Overall, we also show you that data analytics is ineffective in preventing crime. Tech companies doesn't help to reduce crime. According to the Noble magazine 2018, even with the help of big data, the overall crime rate has been the same in the US since the 1960s. With this proof that with or without personal data, crimes are still going to happen. Similarly, according to News Act 2016, the Chicago police used a $2 million grant to test out a new algorithm that can potentially predict shooters. However, 0 lives have been saved, and it's only a loss of money and time and labor. So therefore, these algorithms on their side are completely irrelevant, and they're not working right now. Furthermore, we show that according to Florida, actually 80% of the algorithm is inaccurate. We also show you how more than 61,000 police who are completely innocent are being sent back into jail because tech companies are providing the police with these faulty applications and faulty algorithms that are sending the wrong people back into jail. Okay, moving to our third contention about disease prevention. First of all, we would like to say that this is irrelevant because tech companies like Alibaba are simply creating or inventing these applications. But the one using these algorithms or using these applications are the government. So therefore, it has nothing to do with tech companies' usage of personal data. Second of all, we see that COVID-19 has not been prevented because of tech companies, even if the amount of cases is declining. It is caused by social distancing, quarantine, and hygiene. This is not caused by tech companies' usage of data. Third of all, we tell you that there's accuracy problems. According to Reuters, the QR code they mention on their site are made by citizens filling out an online form reporting their own ID numbers and symptoms. They're putting the safety of entire population in the hands of people, and people may easily lie in these forms filled online. So first of all, we also tell you that these things do not work because according to economic, these coronavirus apps may only be useful if more than 60% of people use them. However, according to Rockhouse survey, it reports that more than 90% of customers are not even going to share their data with tech companies in the first place. What this proves is that our phones are not going to be able to access their benefits if people are not sharing their information with tech companies. Moving on to the final contention about how there's user benefits. They talk about coupons. First of all, we don't see how tech companies are using our personal data in the process. According to Verge, Honey's privacy term says that it does not track or use any search engine history, emails, or any browsing data, which means that the entire point here is definitely off topic if Honey isn't even collecting your personal data in the first place. Second of all, let's just say even if Honey collects our personal data, tech companies are not charity organizations. There's no such thing as free coupons. According to Verge, Honey is simply a malware that attacks all your private shopping behavior, and they can read or change any of your data that these websites can track. What we show you that here is that Honey has no apparent benefits, and articles are failing to quantify how many people actually are benefited and how much money has been saved. On our side, we show that because tech companies are targeting these posts, this causes scams to be made. According to Course 2018, Facebook shows us scamming at least 45 million times targeting vulnerable seniors. 9,000 victims lost at least $300 million. We see that the poor people, because tech companies are able to access our data and see who's the most vulnerable through customization, this causes them to target the most vulnerable people in our society, causing people to lose at least $300 million here. We definitely outweigh on this. Okay, moving on to their responses to our case. First of all, they see that cybercrime is not unique. However, just saying something is not unique does not negate the harm. Our site tells you that $1.5 trillion is specifically generated because tech companies and social media tech companies are using our data. This does not negate the harm on our side. Second of all, their response to risk violence is that their algorithms are easily to be fixed. However, if people are discriminatory in the first place, as our opponents themselves stated, then they're not going to even fix the algorithms if people are discriminatory. Even more, we tell you that because discriminatory people are the ones making these algorithms, this causes many problems such as predictive policing. Finally, we also tell you that we're not just talking about discrimination in algorithms, we also tell you that tech companies are having these faulty apps. So therefore, we're so proud to make it.
That's fine.
I'm ready for crossfire whenever you are.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. I'll be asking the first question because I'm speaking first. My question is, how specifically does technology companies' use of personal data target seniors and vulnerable citizens?
For example, tech companies are selling their information. For example, data brokers are selling information, and they're able to know your age. When they see you're old, they assume that you have less knowledge on topics. For example, you don't know as much about the internet. Therefore, they're going to target you with all these scamming metal ads saying that you can buy these metals and earn money. As a result, we show that because Facebook are using personal data to actually give more person and give access for more people to see these ads, this causes 9,000 people to lose $300 million. So therefore, this is directly linked to tech companies' usage of data. Okay, moving on to our question. So you talk about how you can solve the coronavirus. How do Alipay know your location?
It uses your personal data and contact tracing. So this isn't necessarily entirely based on location. It's called contact tracing for a reason. It's based on who is in your contacts and whether or not you've been within close proximity with them. So it's not entirely based on location.
Sure, follow up. Does Alipay control your phone and know every single contact you have on your phone?
No, but it's in people's best interest to not lie about their location for something that could prevent a mass pandemic.
So you cannot be sure that people are not lying, right? People can lie and you won't know about it.
But you are not necessarily sure that people are lying.
We tell that there's a potential that people can lie and you're not.
You say that there's a potential and you give no stats of people lying.
Okay, sure, we can move on. Do you have a question?
And the fact, sorry, I might want to add on that. The fact that it's effective in South Korea shows that people are in fact not lying.
What tech company is working in South Korea right now?
It's a tech company. We gave you an example. WeChat and Alipay, they use QR codes and contact tracing.
Can you slow down? So I'm asking for which tech company is specifically working in South Korea, not China.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
So the government is the one in South Korea.
So sorry, my Wi-Fi is bad. I couldn't hear what you said. Can you repeat it?
So I'm asking, so which tech company is working in South Korea right now? Or is it the South Korean government that is analyzing everyone's data and solving the coronavirus right now?
Okay, I could give you a couple of examples. Apple and Samsung, their devices have the apps on them, and the apps that use the contact tracing technology. An example is WeChat, and another example is Alipay, which is lesser known.
But is that in South Korea or not?
South Korea is a very large country, so we can't necessarily determine whether or not one app is being used throughout the entire country, which is proof that there's no government intervention. Because if there was, one app would be used throughout the entire country.
Do you have a question?
I do have a question. How is the spread of violence and discrimination linked to tech companies and
Because
their
tech
use of
companies are
systems?
targeting these hate posts in Myanmar.
Right.
A minute of our prep time.
All right.
All side.
Thank you.
Okay, your time starts now.
All right, time is up. Crossfire. Sorry.
Okay. Everyone ready?
Your microphone is muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Sorry, my time starts now. We strongly support today's topic. I'll first talk about the crossfire and then move on to the rebuttal speech. They first said in crossfire that they didn't need to explain the percentage of data breaches in the tech business. There were data breaches, yes, but these data breaches were from years ago when tech infrastructure itself was not as advanced. Additionally, the content has not mentioned anything figure-wise about the amount of money saved or the amount of lives saved. There is no reason why the content wins on any of these arguments. Data breaches are mostly on industries where technology companies do not have a foothold, so the con team does not stand for this argument. I'll now move on to our opponent's rebuttal points. They first said that we provided no link to technology companies. However, technology companies are the ones giving the information to governments, and especially police departments. These police departments use the information they gain from technology companies to track these criminals. Therefore, that is the link between criminal tracking and data collection. They also say that the companies do not reduce the crime rate. However, we did not argue for any reduction of the crime rate itself, just the crime prevention rate. More people don't want to commit crimes anymore because those crimes will be solved much more easily. This is the crime prevention rate being much lower than it was before. They also said that social distancing is not caused by tech companies. However, this is simply untrue. China's control of COVID-19 is from technology companies. The QR code itself is operated by WeChat, one of the world's largest tech companies. There are millions of users using the system, so they cannot say that this company is not a tech company. Furthermore, they also completely ignore the fact that countries can reopen from this technology by still observing social distancing. This is a win-win scenario for both country and person. People can quarantine and also go to work at the same time, essentially negating the entire rebuttal for the con team. They also said that 19% of people won't share their information with tech companies. This is a fifth of all users on the internet. A fifth of people don't want to share their information. Even if this has a major effect on data collection, which it really does not, browsers such as Honey still help people save money. They also said that our third contention is irrelevant, and Honey is a virus that attacks the computer. However, will software that is owned by Amazon and downloaded 5 million times be a virus? There's no part on the con team to assume that this is a virus. Therefore, their point about Honey being a virus does not stand either. They cannot deny the fact that Honey still saves users money. They also say that $1.5 trillion is lost every year. However, we believe that the loss of these funds are much less important than the loss of actual human lives. Not only did they completely drop this part of a speech about healthcare, they have given no evidence to say that these people can actually be helped. Moreover, they said that honey is not related to personal data. However, apps such as honey are relying on large data pools to work functionally. Search engines such as Google, Bing, or Yahoo, or any other company would not be one, profitable, or two, innovative. So the concept right here does not stand. There's also really only one major clash here: whether the healthcare system is bad for pandemic prevention or is beneficial. We clearly win this case because not only have we given data to show that people are saved, we also say that whole countries can reopen. The conteam have given no real benefit of voting for their point and their whole side. Therefore, their points here do not stand either. This is why we strongly urge a pro ballot. Thank you.
Can we please get a minute and 15 seconds?
Sure, your time starts now.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay, so is everyone ready? Okay, time starts now. First of all, to clarify, we should focus on all aspects of today's debate, especially vulnerable people, unless it harms the majority of the rest of the people. Now, moving on to the main points of today's debate. First of all, economy. Our opponents actually point out this point about honey and how there are users' benefits. However, there are two major problems with this. First of all, there are no impacts on our opponent's side. They don't tell us how many people are using these services, and they don't tell us how much money can actually be saved for these people. And also, how does this outweigh $1.5 trillion lost on our side because of cybercrime directly caused by data exploitation of tech companies specifically? Now, also, the second point here is that lives are more important. Our opponents continuously tell us how lives are more important. However, they're only focusing on this convenience of user benefits while they're ignoring all of the other harms on our opponent's side, such as discrimination and other points that we will point out later on in today's debate. We also outweigh this because they continuously state how only 4 of the top 15 data breaches are related to tech companies. However, we tell you that this is just because other industries cause the same problem doesn't mean that the problem doesn't exist. We have clear numbers that clearly show that $1.5 trillion are lost because of these these frauds and all of these scams that are provided by, for example, Facebook, where $300 million were lost by 9,000 victims. Now, moving on to the next point of today's debate, which is discrimination. Our opponents talk about security benefits and how we can benefit people by making sure that violence can be avoided. However, they never give us a number of people that are actually being saved or a number of crimes that are actually being avoided. They tell us how people won't want to commit crimes anymore, but how many people is this? Is the number actually decreasing? Because we tell you that the crime rate is staying the same in the US since the 1960s. When data was not even used yet. Thus, there is no actual benefit of data usage. In fact, on our side, we tell you that there are many other forms of discrimination, such as in the policing argument. We tell you that actually, because of this algorithm used by tech companies, and it actually says that 61,200 innocent people are thrown into jail for absolutely no reason and are actually innocent, and their lives are ruined simply because of this algorithm. They tell us how this problem can be solved. However, if the problem can be solved, why is it not solved today? The impacts have already been done. 3.5 times more blacks are shot by whites just because of these algorithms. So is this okay for us? Of course not. So thus, the algorithm will not be fixed because the people that are creating these algorithms are already originally discriminating against these people. Now, moving on to the last point of today's debate, which is healthcare. Our opponents talk about how there will be these Alipay health codes. However, we have 4 responses. First of all, this is not personal data. Our opponents talk about how and admit it to us that people are voluntarily filling in this data. Thus, this entire point actually drops out of this entire debate because it is not topical. It isn't about tech companies' usage of data. It is people filling out these surveys or filling out these questions. This has nothing to do with personal data because they can simply lie for these reasons. We also tell you that that because of the risk of that our opponent side has not shown how South Korea has actually prevented this. They can't name the tech company that has actually prevented this from occurring, and thus this entire argument should fall on our opponent's side. Thus, we strongly negate the resolution. Thank you.
Thanks. So go to ground cross.
Yeah. Okay, so
we'll ask the
whenever
first
you're ready.
question. Oh, is it okay if I ask the first question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So I didn't get the time to ask this in the last crossfire, but what is your substantial link between the incorrect news and technology companies' use of personal data?
We're not
Like
talking
the
about
harms associated with that.
We're talking about healthcare harms. There are these fake healthcare apps. What happens is that, for example, I go online and search up for knee pain medicine. What happens is that because Google knows that I have knee pain problems, they will send me They will send me ads or other posts that show me that I can actually fix these problems.
Does this outweigh the fact that people are being saved in these hospitals in the first place? Since this is a general topic of healthcare.
Do you have
Is there anything preventing these people from actually being saved, or is it something else?
Our opponent's side has not shown how many people are actually benefited, while on our side we clearly tell you that 250,000 children and even more are being killed simply because of these fake medicines provided by these targeted apps.
Yeah.
Thus, we believe that we should focus
Okay,
on
move on to our question.
How
How many people are saved from cancer because of tech companies specifically?
Again, we didn't mention cancer in any specific way. We just mentioned medical benefits, and there clearly are a lot of medical benefits on our side that the con team has never rebutted ever. But there are actual benefits on our side due to healthcare,
what are these
as we
benefits.
previously mentioned. I wouldn't like to repeat the speech, but we could if you would like to.
We just want to know what type of medical benefits your side is talking about. Who are receiving these medical benefits? How much people?
Again, I don't
example of a medical
want to
benefit-
repeat part of
I'm
my
so
speech.
sorry. Can I interrupt? An example of a medical benefit that complies with your framework, specifically the coronavirus, which we mentioned in our second contention, the people that are most vulnerable to this disease are actually minorities and people in low-income neighborhoods. So by your framework, we are helping the vulnerable at we are prioritizing the vulnerable's needs above those who are more privileged. And essentially, the benefits in healthcare are all going to those who are more vulnerable to the coronavirus because they're the most vulnerable. So if the coronavirus is prevented or the spread of it is prevented, the people who are benefiting are those who are the minorities and those in low-income areas.
So, however,
in your best
like
interest.
we already said in our summary, we tell you that actually this entire point about Alipay and these QR codes from COVID-19 are actually irrelevant because people are voluntarily filling out this data. They tell these companies where they are or what their location.
How does this make a difference? How is technology, how is data collection different in any way just because someone has agreed to fill out that data? The data itself is still data, right? There's nothing changed due to this. And we also mentioned that QR codes aren't actually relevant to the question so far, since we did mention that QR codes themselves help to actually stop the spread of major diseases, especially COVID-19. So since we have such a successful example in China, there is really nothing stopping this from being implemented in other countries, right? What really is stopping these QR codes from popping
If I can add to what my partner is saying, technology companies design the software that is used for this contact tracing. For example, WhatsApp and Alipay, they're technology companies.
Right.
May I take the rest of my prep time, please? Thank you.
Sure, time starts now. Okay, time's up. Hello, can you hear me?
All right, so I guess your time is up.
Hello?
If everybody's ready, I will begin in 3, 2, 1. So I will be going throughout the major issues of the debate and how they correspond to the framework that our opponent brings up. So first, a major issue is pandemic prevention. Then the people who are benefiting the most are those who are affected by it the most, and therefore those who are in low-income households and are minorities. Our impact here, which is unique to the debate, is we are saving lives and benefiting minorities, which complies with their framework. Another major issue throughout this debate was criminal sentencing and whether or not it is discriminatory. They essentially describe the harms of algorithmic criminal sentencing, and we would like to respond to this by saying that these harms can be solved with an algorithm, but are only made worse with the alternative to data, which is human intervention, because you can't reprogram a human. So we win on this because we have proven that an algorithm is superior to their alternative. And either way, the harms are the same, except a human, you can't fix them. Another major issue throughout this debate was data breaches. They give no evidence as to why there is an impact, especially towards vulnerable people, which is what their framework is based on. So I don't really understand how this is valid to the debate. They also provide no reasonable link between the harms of data breaches and technology companies' intervention. And another major issue in this debate was the incorrect news point that they brought up in their constructive speech and didn't necessarily carry out throughout the debate. So the impact can't really be considered because they establish a significant and substantial link to technology companies and the harms associated with the incorrect news or false advertisements. Also, they fail to consider that these can be ignored, and also counter speech is always an answer for this. One could easily find correct information elsewhere. We clearly win on unique benefits pertaining to their framework, which is benefiting the vulnerable while prioritizing the needs of the vulnerable over the needs of the well-off. Thank you, Judge, and please cast a pro ballot.
All right, thanks, Con.
Can we use the rest of our prep time? Thank you.
Okay, time's up.
Yeah, I think that's about 48 seconds.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, everyone ready? Time starts now. Okay, there are 4 major issues why you should vote for our side. We talk about violence on our side. We said that because tech companies are spreading these hate speeches online through their recommendation algorithms, this causes 43,000 people to be killed and 1.1 million people made into refugees. Our police give us no response. Furthermore, we talk about human trafficking because tech companies like Salesforce are working with other. This causes 90 women to be sexually exploited. We see the life as the far most important thing in today's debate because once lives are taken away, it's irreversible. Our opponents talk about crime rate reduction. However, they have failed to show how it is happening under the status quo and how many lives have been saved. The third reason is healthcare. Our opponents talk about epidemics. However, we have clearly proven that tech companies, the only thing they're doing is giving these apps and creating this application. But the one using personal data as the topic requires is the government. Therefore, that is off topic. When our say we tell you that 250,000 kids are dying from these wrongly advertised drugs by tech companies because tech companies' only incentive is to earn money. The final reason you should feel comfortable voting for our side is discrimination. Our opponents say that there's solutions and there's solvencies. However, we do not see that the solutions are being implemented under the status quo. We see that we should never sacrifice a group of people for another. We show how 61,000 parolees who are completely innocent and are released from jail are trying to get their lives back into order. But this faulty tech company app for analyzing the wrong location data is sending these innocent people back into prison, and tech companies have no financial incentive to fix these apps because the only thing they want to do is earn money. Which, as a result, we show that innocent people had their freedom completely ruined from them, and they're killed and sent back into jail. Furthermore, we talk about high mortgage costs, how it costs the minorities $371 billion per year, and therefore we think it's a strong combat.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys for such a competitive debate. Kindly give us a few minutes whilst we come up with our decision, okay?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we are back from the commercial break. Yeah, we have all five. Is the winner. Congratulations to you guys. So I would allow my judges to give their feedback or reasons why they voted for Con.
All right, I can probably go first. So I really actually enjoyed this debate. I found that both sides were quite articulate and had, really strong command of their cases overall. But overall, what I think really swung the case in the Con's favor is their ability to crystallize and also explicitly weigh between impacts. I found that teams generally in the middle school division are highly successful when they're able to do these two specific things, because Pro, I think you guys have a great idea. You guys have like a gist of where you guys are trying to get at. So basically you guys talk about saving lives and basically helping the vulnerable populations with economic benefits and things along this line. That's essentially what the Con is also saying, but basically what the Con does is while you guys might be more vague, you guys say that you guys agree with their framework, you guys are helping vulnerable populations, and you guys are prioritizing their needs. Con essentially tells me how much economic damages are done. They tell me how many lives are saved. They tell me how much crime is reduced or increased. They tell me how many children died to these false healthcare drugs. So I felt like that was actually really quite convincing because it really contextualized the numbers and basically tell me that we should never sacrifice one specific group for the other. So ultimately, I thought it was their substantiation and just general grasp of evidence that essentially led me to vote for Con. But Pro, I think you guys also did a really good job, and this was really a lovely round to listen to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me? I think I will just be the next because my phone is dying. So because I didn't vote for Con, so that's I'm going to talk about why I didn't vote for Pro. So first of all, I think the Pro side mentioned the user benefits. What I really suggesting is that you could actually quantify the impacts in the very first place in the constructive speech, because you waste actually a big amount of time discussing because the other side asks you about the quantified impacts of users' benefits. So you could actually bring that like in the very first place. And second of all, when it came to the discriminated policing, your rebuttal actually didn't make sense to me because the Pro side mentioned that actually humans are the ones who discriminate against others. And the Con side, it is actually human who discriminated. And you cannot actually, I think the Pro side also mentioned that in the last place that you cannot reprogram humans. So I think this kind of like, self-contradictory, since humans are those who program these applications and algorithms, and also they discriminate against people. So in that case, if the people still discriminate against people, those algorithms still discriminate against people, it's the same. So I was actually expecting that you bring in more logical linkage, explain why those people are not discriminated by those algorithms. And the last would be the final focus on ground crossfire when you were trying to defend yourself by the coronavirus, by saying that coronavirus will actually benefit the poor. But how and why are they only benefit poor? Because you mentioned that the poor people are those group of people who benefited the most from this, this prevention. But how about others? How about the person saved, this person saved, why those poor people are those who saved, who benefit the most from the prevention. So I was actually expecting more like clarification on your logical linkage, and that was basically my suggestion, and keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay, so I also voted for Con based on a few reasons. Amongst them include, when it came to rebuttal, I realized that the Con team provided enough evidences supported by impact to rebut the constructive points of the Pro team. However, when it came to rebuttals, the Pro team, you did well, like you rebutted the first case of the Con team, that is cybercrime, and its related subpoints. However, the subsequent cases presented by the Con team, you failed to sufficiently rebut these cases using evidences. And just as my other two judges have indicated, whereas the Con was rebutting their cases, defending their cases, and answering crossfire questions using evidences and then data, you guys were doing same, but it lacked impact to support it. And the Con team did well by quantifying every impact that they gave. For example, was the 500,000 data leakage, and also the 1.5 trillion which is being lost each year. And also, according to their presentation, 90% of even users don't prefer to give out their data, but they benefit from the other related benefits of personal data when it is being provided, as you guys indicated. So I realized that they give data and strong impact at every given point in time when you ask them questions during crossfire, during rebuttals, and in all their responses. So that is among the reasons why I voted for Con. And Pro team, you were like, okay, yours is about saving lives, and then benefit to society. However, you didn't really give any quantifiable impact to this. Stating this without necessarily backing it with evidence or a quantifiable impact makes it look like it is weak compared to what the con team said. So this and more were the reasons why I voted for con. I've written like 2 pages. When you get it from NSD, I think you can go through some of them, and then the personal feedback as well. Thanks.
Okay, I also voted for pro, for con, because the con has really good rebuttal towards the pro side's arguments. And talking about the preventing crimes, they asked for the specific or quantifiable evidence for why this is actually by using the personal data prevent this crime from happening, but the pro didn't provide that evidence. And second, they talked about the QR code and how it will actually prevent the disease from spreading fast. And also the counting asked for evidence on how many lives are saved due to the use of QR code. And the protein didn't give me very specific evidence to show that. And also you mentioned about this is actually help the vulnerable people and poor people to prevent from the spreading of coronavirus. And actually the most vulnerable people in China may not even have a QR code. So, and third, about the, and also you did the protein, you did a good job, but you didn't rebut some of the points like the discrimination and human trafficking points. I think that stands for the con. And so that's why my votes goes to the con side. Thank you.
Okay, so I think I'll just focus on the main problems of the pro. So firstly, the first speaker from pro side, you were being unnecessarily loud, and I actually could see in a lot of judges' faces that they were genuinely irritated. So some judges may just, vote you down for that right then and there, not that any one of us did. And secondly, I think it's about your coronavirus argument, since I think it's basically the key to your case, right? Your contention one is, well, I don't think you were able to explain your contention one very clearly. They say crime rate didn't drop. You say, well, people are less inclined to do crime. Well, doesn't that mean crime rates necessarily will drop? But you didn't really do a very good job in explaining that, or extending more on its links and impact. And your contention 3 is something about coupon, whose impact is actually very dubious. So the second one, well, I think it should be way more specific, because you're saying how this will basically benefit the vulnerable groups, right? But how are actually, like what you're talking about, how do the QR codes specifically help to do that? Because the first impact you gave is basically, oh, we can reopen the country. Well, but that's not really, we shouldn't really give all the credit to the QR code, right? People are probably able to reopen the country because they've done a lot of testing, and they have been through a long period of lockdown, and all the other factors combined together, and eventually at a certain point in time, they make the decision to reopen the country. So I don't think how QR code single-handedly is the link to that impact, to access that impact. And secondly, you say, oh, coronavirus, the vulnerable groups are suffering the most from coronavirus. Well, that's probably not solved by QR codes, since, for example, since one, in the status quo, we already have QR codes, and secondly, they are the most vulnerable, probably because they are the most economically disadvantaged. Probably they don't even have a home to stay in. Probably they cannot even afford certain fees for their health care, for example. Maybe that's why they're most vulnerable. And I just fail to see how a QR code is somehow magically going to solve that. And secondly, you made some bad choices in your rebuttal speech, I think. And so first of all, your response to their breach argument is basically, it's not unique. Other industries have worse incidents than that, but as they said, well, they only have to prove in tech industries these incidents also happen, and it exacerbates the situation. Then they basically can prove their argument. And secondly, you say, oh, privacy causes no harm, where they have literally just said it costs like $1.5 trillion, which is kind of a lot of harm. And about human trafficking, you say it's not technology companies using those data. They are only selling those data. Well, arguably selling may also be counted as a form of using. But even as this argument wasn't really discussed any further into the debate, I'm not going to focus on that. And also for the for basically hate speech echo chamber part, you just said, oh, it's just news. News aren't personal data, but I'm pretty sure they've explained how personal data was actually used in the process of creating this echo chamber, which was partially responsible for the genocide that took place in Myanmar. And yeah, and you like read 3 cards about how basically AI are easier to fix in terms of racism, which I think is kind of too much because it only kind of mitigates their impacts, saying that look, in the short future maybe it can be fixed, which was basically responded with, well, if people are already racist, then how is it actually easier to fix? And so I think maybe you could have just read one of those cards and say, look at our other impacts, they certainly outweigh this thing, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think those are the 3 main reasons why I voted against you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, judges.
Good debate, you guys.
Thank you.